I am so tired of seeing content creators be more concerned about what people will think about them than speaking the truth.
Codie Sanchez, I think she makes some of the best content on all social media as it comes to business. She's brilliant. You're going to take a ton of notes.
Today, it's a special treat. Codie Sanchez in the house.
We are in the most competitive business that exists in the world right now, content. I simultaneously have to compete with Mr. Beast giving away $1 million, The Rock's 24-pack and whatever new movie he has coming out, the news that comes out every single day. I think when it comes to content, one of the reasons we've had some success, I think there's two reasons, actually. Get in the room where other people are already playing the game that you want to learn to play. Curiosity beats intellect almost any day of the week.
You have a formula. It's called the Spark Content Formula. I love this, and could you walk us through that?
Sure.
Cody, if you explain who you are and what you do, how do you explain that?
Depends who I'm talking to. If I'm on a airplane and I don't want to talk to somebody, I tell them I'm in financial sales, which does the trick every time. Nobody wants to get sold finance products. But to simplify it, I basically say that I invest in Main Street businesses. I invest in Main Street companies, the likes of which you use every single day, and now I talk about it on the internet. And we do it in three components. We have Main Street Holding Company, which is where we hold all the assets. We have Contrarian Thinking Capital, which is venture capital fund. And then we have Contrarian Thinking Media, which is the stuff that has all of our courses and community and the social media that maybe some of you guys follow online.
Yeah, well, recently you crossed 1 million subscribers.
I did, on YouTube.
On YouTube.
Yeah, totally.
Congratulations. Across platforms, it's zillions and billions across platforms.
Wow.
But we're here at Growth Video Live, and everybody in the room is wanting to create content. They've maybe started already creating content. There's some huge channels here, millions of subscribers, and some people that are just getting started. Here's my first question for you. Why content?
Naval Ravikant came up with this idea that I really thought highly of. He was the founder of AngelList and a bunch of other companies. And I remember seeing this years ago. He basically said, there are layers to what's called leverage in the world. And the very first lever was labor, right? It was first just work. If you wanted to get more done, you had more workers, more employees back in the day, slaves. And then the second lever that created more wealth than labor ever did, in some ways, was capital. And so that was like when the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, the titans of US industry were created, was right about the same time the banking laws changed to allow them access to other people's money, capital. And then we've had the most recent one, which is code, right? So the ability for Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk to create an army of labor and an army of capital in the form of robots, but code online, right? And then I think today the most democratized, easily accessible way for all of us to get access to the next lever is audience. And so, for years I had run a large Latin American investment firm at a company called First Trust, and we had $1 billion in assets under management. I remember specifically talking to the CEO of that company. We were walking along the beach at the Montage in California, and I was trying to explain to him this idea. I'm like, listen, I got us to $1 billion using your way. And your way was like steak dinners, shaking hands, knowing the centers of influence, going into government institutions and asking for permission to manage our money. That's how we got here. If I want to create the next $10 billion, the way to do it is not to shake hands. The way to do it is create something once and distribute it continuously through the internet. And Jim is the man, and we're still very close, and he's still more of a billionaire than I am, so he's doing a few things right. But he disagreed with me. He was like, categorically, no. If you're going to be at this firm, you cannot get on TV, you cannot go and talk about this online, you cannot create newsletters. And he said, and I'll never forget, Cody, at this firm, we get rich quietly. And I sat with that for a long time, and now that I'm pretty public, I understand why he might say that. There's a lot of downside to being public. But at that point, I said, Jim, if I disagree with you and I want to go this other direction with my part of the company, I owned part of the Latin American division, what are we going to do? And he said, if you want to play poker, you need to get your own chips. And so, yeah. And you know what? He was right. He was right. And so thankfully, he, for all intents and purposes, said, either start rowing or get off the boat. So I got off the boat. And yeah, you guys have all probably had a moment where you did that, right? where other people told you you shouldn't be creating online content, this is ridiculous, why do you think you can, are you a fake guru online, all of the things. And if you haven't heard those yet, just wait. And yet, he reached out to me maybe a month ago and said, I think it's really incredible what you're doing. What are the next steps, et cetera? Where do you think this is gonna go? And I kind of chuckled and I was like, you kicking me out the door was the single best thing that could have happened to me, because now we have a holding company that does hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue. We own dozens and dozens of companies, and we have more attention in one email I send than his entire company. And that is the power of the internet.
Wow. You graduated early from Arizona State University with a degree in journalism.
Harvard of the West, really.
Did you learn any lessons from journalism that you apply today when it comes to creating the content you create?
Yeah, curiosity beats intellect almost any day of the week. How many intelligent humans have you met that could not thread a needle through a hole? There are so many people who think that being intelligent is the key to success. And if you actually look at many different data sets, what you find is that the smartest people, in fact, those at the far end of the curve, have some of the lowest levels of success, aka wealth, relationships, happiness index. And so if I could take one skill and transport it to just about anybody else, it would be curiosity. And if you're curious, and then you learn something, and then you iterate on that thing, and then you innovate on that thing, then you eventually win. And so journalism, I think, taught me two things. Journalism I had originally applied to investing, because if you want to be a good investor, what are you essentially doing? You're trying to ask questions to see if people are lying to you or not, in order for you to give them money or not. That's kind of what investing is. Do I believe what I'm being told? And if I believe what I'm being told, should I allocate resources or money to this thing? And what's interesting is that's what journalism does. You go and you ask hard questions to find answers. And I think when it comes to content, one of the reasons we've had some success, I think there's two reasons, actually. The main reason is I'm really curious. I just cannot imagine a world in which we are given this incredible cranium we all have with these neurons firing, and we don't try to squeeze every bit of information out of this life that we humanly can. How sad a world if we do not try to take the things that, in my mind, God gave us and apply them to the maximum amount possible. I hate that idea. And so I think that's one reason we've been successful. And the second reason is because, if you guys are creating online, there's one thing that I think is more important than anything else. Forget the Instagram reel versus the TikTok versus the hook versus the first 30 seconds. It's, do you think you're the hero? Or are the people that you're serving the heroes? Are you the Luke Skywalker, or are the people that are watching your videos the Luke Skywalker? And I remember reading some parts of this originally from Storyteller Brand.
Donald Miller, Story Brand.
Story Brand. And when he said that to me, it hit. Because when I'm on a stage like this, I don't actually think it's about me. I think it's about how do I meet as many of yous, because the bigger ripple is not Cody gets bigger. The bigger ripple is, what do you think is easier for me to do? There's 600 people here in this room, right? Is it easier for Cody to get 600 million followers, or would it be easier for this crowd cumulatively to get 600 million? What's easier? The latter. You guys, right? So how much more powerful are my ripples if what I can do is influence others to live incredible lives, to get bigger, to create greater, and I can just be like the little Yoda whispering in the ear of the heroes, which is all of you. And so, I have a book coming out this December. Sean was incredible and a very early supporter of it, which I take very seriously, so thank you. And they tried to I remember they did this mock-up. And if you've seen what books look like, and it's like a book mock-up, and I have all these photos from different things that we've shot, and so they sent me the mock-up, and it was like, Codie Sanchez, on the cover. And I was like, delete this immediately, absolutely not. This book is not about me, it is about everybody who wants to be the thing that we are talking about in this book. And I think if we all remember that, then we have audience that has real connection, as opposed to try to become a celebrity. And the only thing that happens when you try to become a celebrity is you eventually become cringe. And so that is what I want to stay away from. Oh.
In just a second, I want to learn about your Spark content formula. But I want to hang on the journalism for a second because you won an award. You did some work that really impacted some of the atrocities with sex trafficking. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So where I started creating content, I guess, but I never would have thought about it that way back then, was I graduated a year early from Harvard of the West, and due to the crazy curriculum I had some free time. And so I decided to partner with something called the Howard F. Buffett Foundation, which is Warren Buffett's son for print journalism. And my last name's Sanchez. I'm Latina, and I lived in Arizona at the time. That's where I was raised. And what was fascinating is we were given a grant to cover stories along the US-Mexico border with this idea of like what happens at divisions that humans create, like what happens at these divisive points. And so I've crossed the border actually illegally, like I can't even tell you the number of times, with human traffickers and individuals trying to cross the border. And this was in 2007, 8, something like that, writing stories about what it's really like down there. And what was interesting is I met this one guy whose name was Neftali Fuentes, and he had crossed the border. I'm going to mess up the number, but he was 17 or 18 years old, and he had crossed the border like over 100 times. And not like back and forth because he wanted to, like 100 times but couldn't get in, like kept getting kicked back. And I remember sitting down with him and talking about like, what is it that drives you to be here? Like, what other way could we get you here? And it was like sort of at that moment where I realized, man, if we are given probably one of the biggest gifts out there in the world, which is the ability to be a citizen of America, and we have the ability to produce at the highest level of which we are physically capable. Like there is no real foot on your neck of progress in this country. Sometimes I think we might be trending towards that, but today, right now, there's just about nowhere better in the world if you want to produce in a capitalistic society. No better place. And so, yeah, it feels me. And I think it's our duty as content creators to push that forward. And so when I was writing those stories about human trafficking and Neftali Fuentes, and when I saw what happened to women in Agua Prieta who are being murdered, it's called La Ciudad de Muerte, the city of death, because every single day women would be found strewn across the border in the city of El Paso, across from El Paso, which is called Juarez, and I would go to the morgue and I would identify body parts, like how many people were actually killed. So like, you know, if a woman is in 6 parts, are we noting that as 6 women? Are we sure that's not just 1? And when I was watching all that, I thought, God, what is the difference between me and them? My last name's Sanchez. I'm a young woman. They worked in the things called maquiladores along the US-Mexico border, which is basically like warehouse factories for like Lowe's or Home Depot down there. And they would get shipped in from southern Mexico to sort of these shanty towns to work in these warehouses. And it was a much better life for those women there than down south. More pay, more opportunity, except for this pernicious violence that we've never been able to find out. Hundreds of women are murdered every year in Juarez, or found murdered. I imagine the number is actually quite higher. And so what I realized in that moment, and I think one of the big reasons that I'm into content today, is I do not think we should get rich quietly. I think the difference between getting rich quietly and getting rich together is actually we make more money and we have more impact, not less. And I think the difference between me and those women was simply I was born an American citizen with the ability to earn. And what if we could teach more people that? So that's why I'm loud on the internet and why I'm pretty mission driven. And I think maybe what I would try to proselytize or tell to all of you is like the world is full of self-help books as business cards. We don't need more of those. Yes. The world is full of YouTube channels touting 21-year-old morons who are trying to tell you how to live your life. I want the confidence of a 21-year-old life coach. Could you imagine a life coach? I'm 37. I would never be a life coach. I barely got it figured out. And so I just think if we're gonna create content online, we need to make sure we're doing it for a reason. We need to make sure we stand for something. We need to make sure we're serving somebody else and not ourselves. And that is how we can feel good about it and not go down the porno rabbit hole of chasing clicks and clickbait, which eventually ends at YouPorn. And so we don't want that. We want to create things that matter, that last through the test of time. And so it started at human trafficking, but it's transcended all the way to why does it matter that we each are rich, and how can we talk about that online? So for you guys, I would say, what is that mission for you? Because you all uniquely have something to share. Every single human does. And make sure that what you share matters, isn't just chasing number of views on videos. And I've met so many billionaires, Sean, I'm sure you have too. By now, most of them aren't happy. Most of them aren't very happy. And I had a friend that ran a family office for a name that you would know, one of the richest guys in the world. And I remember one day I was asking him about it, he was telling me some ridiculous stories. And then I was telling him my plan and how I want to build this billion-dollar company, and he stopped me and he goes, I wish you not one more penny than $299 million. And I said, well, that's rude, because I'd like more than that. And I said, why? And he said, because past that point, you get into a sea of sycophants where you start to believe the things that you don't even really know to be true. And nobody tells you one way or the other. And so I know there are a lot of people online that say, I want to be a billionaire. My purpose is a billionaire. That's not deep enough, guys. Because once you get there, you're going to realize it's just the next billion and the next billion and the next billion. And one thing that I will say is I am so tired of seeing content creators be more concerned about their own skin and what people will think about them than speaking the truth. How many of you guys have seen that? They won't get into politics, they won't get into pushing back, they won't get into saying the truth because they don't want to mess up their views. And I think that if you have the unique ability to get attention on the internet, you should use it as a force for good. And that's what I'm trying to do, but often fall far short of.
So this is very inspiring. And now if we get technical, and you have a formula, it's called the Spark Content Formula. I love this. And could you walk us through that?
Sure. I don't remember all of it, so read it for me first.
All right. So you could write this down, 5 steps. Spark. Number 1 is speak to a specific persona.
So one of the interesting parts about how we do content at Contrarian Thinking is I have a team of people who are really good at technical. And we have a belief that every time, it's called the rule of 3. Every time you do things more than 3 times that has more than 3 steps, you should write it down and create an SOP, which is called a system and process for it. And so the Spark formula, how we actually use this, these processes get framed inside of Contrarian Thinking on our best days, but not always, so that the people who are new to the team realize how we do content. And so one of the things that I think is really important for you and your team, as you get bigger, you'll have a bunch of people who are kind of like your mini voice in some ways. They're repackaging content, they're pulling stuff together. And every so often something awful will have happen to you. Like I remember one time, it was like President's Day, I think, or it might have been Memorial Day, which would have been worse. It was like Memorial Day, and the picture that got posted was like Cody in a bikini with like a Theodore Roosevelt quote. And I was like, who's getting fired here? Because this is not what we're trying to do. And so the Spark formula's ideation and origination is the fact that we have these SOPs and processes that have everything that we do inside of them. But as you can probably tell from now, I work a lot from gut as opposed to technicality. And so when I say speak to a specific person, I think the easiest way to start when you are growing a channel is if you go out and you want to be, I don't know if she's relevant anymore, but like Emma Chamberlain, where she's just like laying in her bed kind of talking about coffee or like whatever else happens in the world in her day with no particular niche, that's really hard to grow. If you want to grow faster, you actually do the counterintuitive thing, which is you skinny it down. I want to talk to, in my world, people who want to buy laundromats. Think about how small that niche was that I started in. Laundromat buyers. I don't even know if there were people on the internet that did it, but I thought it was interesting. It was my specific niche. Then I go, okay, maybe car washes, maybe boring businesses in general, maybe people who care about business, maybe people who care about community and business, maybe people who care about an impact on the world through community and business. See how it kind of branches out? So in the beginning, you go really specific, and then after you've gone specific, you get an allowance from your heroes, your audience, to go wider. But in the beginning, they haven't given you that allowance. They don't know if they care about you yet. So you got to get permission for them to care about you. What's the next one?
Number 2, platform proficiency.
Oh, this one's interesting. Like, you'll see Tanner running around here. Tanner's my head of production. And what we realized in the beginning is that running a content business is not that dissimilar from running an investment firm in a lot of ways. It's a lot of feedback loops based on data and getting better at using signals to determine next steps, which is very similar to investing, actually. And so what we realized is we have an idea, and that idea has to be served differently on every single platform. And then a lot of people talk about repurposing. That's like sort of old news. Gary Vaynerchuk made that very normalized, but here's what I think they left out. I think each platform has a personality, and you need to understand who you're serving on each platform. And so maybe you guys have already talked about this, but like TikTok is like, your 17-year-old kind of shithead nephew, right? That's TikTok. He's got ADD. He's also a little angry sometimes, but sometimes he wants to be inspired. He'd like you to dance. I mean, yeah, TikTok. Okay, so if I'm gonna serve something to TikTok, and I don't pay a lot of attention to that platform for personal decisions, like it is a great platform, I don't support the ethics and morals of it, but if I was gonna serve TikTok aggressively, I would think, would my 17-year-old kind of shithead cousin like what I'm about to create? Am I speaking specifically to him? Because many of you are probably parents and friends of young people. The way that you're gonna communicate something to a 17-year-old, nothing else withstanding, as opposed to 45-year-old, very different, right? And so that's TikTok. And then we've got Instagram, which I always kind of think of like, young, like a 30-year-old mom with a couple kids, likes pumpkin spice latte, matching outfits, suede boots. And how do I get to that? Because you see who has the most engagement on the platform. And it's like mom bloggers crush that platform. Like there's one that I love, her name's Dani Austin, if you guys know her. And she's created like multiple brands on top of it. She kind of does these goofy dances. Everybody loves the kid content. Okay, that's Instagram. And then we've got Twitter, which I think about like, Twitter. I think about Twitter like maybe, slightly disgruntled tech bros and real estate entrepreneurs that never quite achieved what they wanted to achieve. And when I think about it that way, I'm really thoughtful on how I serve each platform. And I'm going to like the most base, like almost bad negative connotation of each platform, because I do think if you understand people's pain points, you can better serve them. If I go to their highest self, your highest self is very easy to serve, but we often don't sit there, especially on social media platforms. And so when I go to Twitter, I just know that it's going to react differently than Instagram. Instagram's gonna be probably a little bit nicer than Twitter. And then YouTube, I think, is the one place where there's like a lot of separation of audience in a big way. And you can have totally disparate types of people. And so there it becomes a lot more about what does the algorithm serve up for the first 30, 60, 90 seconds? How do you title, thumbnail, and package? And then are you serving your current audience, but are you sprinkling in a little bit more of what your next audience is? And my friend Kim Kopp, she's also a great follow on Instagram, but she does merchandise for like the biggest celebrities out there. And she was explaining to me how she thinks about YouTube, which is, she thinks about it like, I think the guy's name is like Shawn Mendes, singer, right? You guys know who that is? Okay. So Shawn Mendes, the other day it was funny, I saw a video of him dancing and he was singing, and I sent it to Kim. I was like, oh, this kid's pretty good. He's probably going places. She's like, you idiot. He's like huge on the internet apparently. I don't know anything about pop culture. So anyway, she was explaining to me that Shawn Mendes typically speaks to like the Taylor Swift audience. It's like, 10 to 20-year-old young girls, they're in love with him, a little bit teeny boppy. Well, Sean had that audience served, right? One of the biggest names in the world on it. But Sean, which typically happens with creators and artists, wanted to like sophisticate a little bit, right? So I don't know if you guys have ever had a video and you're like, even Mr. Beast, he's like, yeah, I want to serve the 15-year-olds, but I also want to be taken seriously, philanthropy channel, right? And so he went from serving these teeny boppers to then serving what he really wanted to do, which he's like, I want to be a serious artist. I want to be like John Mayer. And so because of that, he started flipping a few of the things he did with his channel. But he had to do it really slowly, because if right away he went from teeny bopper to, you know, sort of like middle-aged, timeless music listeners, he would have lost this audience entirely and never gotten to this audience. And so that's what I mean by platform specifically.
Number 3, always show up, and you talk about input versus output. What does that mean?
Game of numbers. I've never met anybody that got 1 million followers from one video. And so I think, you know, if you have to choose between quality and quantity, choose quantity, it's easier. If you have to choose between acting slowly, acting fastly, act fastly, you'll have a higher data set and feedback loop coming back to you. And if you're gonna play this game, realize it's almost just like any other job in the world, which is that you have to show up consistently, you can't wait for the muse, you have to continue to execute at a high level or you are very easily forgotten about. We all are. And so first, like in our business, first you have to you yourself have to figure out, what do I wanna talk about? Who am I? What do I want to cover in this world? And then you have to think about, okay, how can I start covering that in some way, shape, or form? So that's like systems and processes. And then you have to think about, okay, now that I know what I want to do, I know how we're going to do it, how can I do it consistently? And then after you get to it consistently, you can say, how can I do it exceptionally? But I think a lot of people skip steps in between those 4.
Do you remember when you posted your first video?
Well, I posted my first YouTube video like 3 years ago, probably. And then I stopped for a year. So there's Cody talking out of 2 sides of her mouth. And then I came back to it, I think about like 1.5 years ago, I think is our anniversary. And I only came back to YouTube once I knew what I wanted to talk about, how we were gonna do it, with consistency that I committed to doing it. And then we're still, I think, getting to the point where we're trying for exceptional, but we're not there yet.
And when you did that first video, or when you first started, what was it like compared to like the tech, getting it done, compared to like the operation you're running now?
Oh yeah, well, I mean the first piece of content I ever created, so there's the lowest barrier of entry ever if you guys want to, was a newsletter. So it required basically no technological proficiency, it required no ability to film videos or edit them. To be honest, I have no idea how to edit a video. 0 idea. Like if you told me, if you got rid of my whole team right now and they're like, go edit this video, I would create 0 content. I don't know how to edit. Let's see, I don't know how to find, you know, trending sounds on TikTok. I don't know how to post on most channels. The only place that I post myself natively every single time is Twitter. I batch almost every single thing that I do, but my eyes are on every single piece of content we create. Ideally, and sometimes it happens, but I get mad, like nothing goes out without my review of it, even today. And we create thousands of pieces of content a year. And I run another company. So it is a big commitment from that standpoint. But I just say that because I think it's important for you to know, like you can have different unfair advantages. My unfair advantage was, I've worked for a long time in finance. I know a lot about investing. I have ideas. These ideas and frameworks and formulas are interesting, I think. And then I have proof. I've been doing this for a while. Like before I got on the internet, you know, telling you guys about making money in finance, I'd actually made money and I had built things. And then the third is that I'm still building them live with you. And so you get to see real time, you get to see past time, and you get to see professional proficiency. Those were my 3 examples. Now you could have a totally different skill set, which is maybe you don't have crazy ideas, maybe you don't have professional proficiency, maybe you don't build in public right now, but you're really good at editing videos, you're obsessed with the craft, and you love making content. Or maybe you're great at finding viral sounds. So I don't think there's like a perfect There's no perfect soup, right? Some people like gazpacho, some people like chicken noodle soup. Both of them can be exceptional. You just have to be really honest with yourself and self-aware about what are you? Are you the gazpacho or are you the chicken noodle soup? And if you try to do all of it, you're just gonna drive yourself crazy.
Question. Are you interested in learning the best strategies that are working right now to get views and subscribers on YouTube? Well, I want to invite you to our free 5-day Tube 1K challenge, where I'm going to be going through our 7-step YouTube success system entirely for free. Over 10,000 people have used this exact framework to start and grow successful YouTube channels, whether for their business, whether as a side hustle or as a creator, or even as a ministry and a nonprofit. And I'm going to be teaching through these 7 steps at tube1kchallenge.com. Every one of the 5 challenge sessions will include a strategy that you can immediately apply to start growing your channel, as well as a challenge, something to do that'll get you moving, taking action, and creating content that will lead to growth. Plus, there's gonna be software giveaways, tech giveaways, and even a brand new YouTube camera. So if you're interested, just go to tube1kchallenge.com or click the link in the show notes. And now, let's get back into the episode.
Speak to a specific persona, platform proficiency, always show up. Number 4, relieve pain points. Forget about vitamins. We're in the painkiller business. Break it down.
It's a good line, isn't it? So there's an old saying that we used to say in finance, which is that people want to take vitamins, but people actually take painkillers. And so if you think about that with content, I think you have to put yourself in the user's shoes. And so when I think about what we create, I realized something the other day, which is we are in the most competitive business that exists in the world right now, content. Why? It's permissionless. Anybody can do it. I simultaneously have to compete with Mr. Beast giving away $1 million, with, whatever, The Rock's 24-pack and whatever new movie he has coming out, with Trump and the presidential election, with the news that comes out every single day. Like, what other industry do you have where your competitors are literally the top of the attention takers in the world? It's a really interesting model. And we think that it's not that competitive because it's not that hard to start. There's no capital expenditures, money up front. There's no real barriers to entry, so you can just get going. But don't be confused for 1 second that this game is incredibly competitive, because it is. And so when I think about what I serve our users, I'm obsessive. Like, my team will tell you I'm maniacal about it, because I think every moment that somebody spends with our content is me taking a small piece of their life. Tiny little moment, because we only get so many of them. And if they are going to give me that tiny little moment, I better give them back something worthwhile. I better give them back something that maybe could create more moments in their life. And I never want to give them junk food, which is both fattening and calorie deficient simultaneously. I want to give them something that can actually fuel them. And so because we take that really seriously, I think people watch our content a lot, because maybe there's this trust that I am actually going to deliver on the most valuable thing that they have, which is their time.
Number 5, keep repackaging.
Oh, yeah. Well, we kind of touched on this a little bit, which is, you guys will have, I use Twitter a lot because Twitter's like my thoughts. So I'm, kind of randomly as I'm going, tweeting ideas, things that are happening. And I don't really consume anything on Twitter. I don't really consume news very often. I do it in specific segments, but I'll post a lot on Twitter about what I'm thinking at the current moment. And then I like to use Twitter as a feedback loop. So what are people resonating with? Why do I use Twitter? It's the easiest type of content to put out. It's simply words, put out immediately. Also, it's highly shareable, so Twitter people can share stuff a lot, as opposed to you just get engagement with your own audience on Instagram. And so I find that Twitter is an interesting place for ideas to spark. Look at that, little pun. And so with that, I will then take those tweets and you'll see them like layered throughout different types of our content. Those tweets will turn into Instagram Reels. Those Instagram Reels, if I have a deeper thought on it, I might flush that out and put those into part of our YouTube videos. I like to put some of the tweets at the bottom of our emails. And so it's not, I don't do it like some do, which is they're like, every piece of content must become 10 pieces of content. The truth of it is, when you look at most channels' performance, there's an 80-20 rule in everything in life, right? Pareto's principle. The best things that you create will be outsized drivers of your return, which is probably right in the realm of 80-20. And so I'd rather find the real gems and then repurpose those.
So strong. So I looked up some of your top videos, and I'm curious some of the things you think about in YouTube when it comes to packaging.
Yeah.
And so let's see. Let's talk about the million viewed videos. Anything you thought, do you remember making a video a year ago? I bought land for $10K and makes me $1,500 a month. That got 1.5 million views. Any thoughts on that video, or just thoughts on the 80-20 rule? Some of the ones that blew up, and you know, you look shocked. There's a tent that is making $1,500 a month in the thumbnail. Like, what goes into your process for creating? That's a good video, viral video, over 1 million views.
A couple things. So I already told you, I have to feel like the video is going to serve the audience, right? So that's base level. I have to feel like on YouTube in particular, we have an avatar we talk to. We have a human every day that I talk to on YouTube that I'm trying to serve. And that is anyone who feels like, we call him Working John. And for Working John, who is he? He is somebody who wants more out of his life, probably located in the US, who is a builder and a doer and a charger, but feels like he hasn't quite hit the financial freedom numbers that he wants. He's looking for the things that will allow him to focus more of his time on the things that he loves, as opposed to more of the time on the things that he has to do. And so when I'm YouTubing, I'm thinking very specifically, can we help this person? So the videos where we've done poorly is like, we did a video, we actually pulled it, we need to repackage it somehow, but we did a video that was like, here's how these like celebrities made their money. And I thought it was interesting because I was breaking down all of the influencers' businesses and like who makes the worst and why do I like this business versus that business. This audience would probably really like it. You'd be like, wait, why do you think, you know, Reese Witherspoon's business is better than The Rock's, and The Rock's is actually better than Terramana, which is George Clooney, and like what makes those businesses different and what are the multiples on those businesses? It's kind of interesting. If you're creating content, you really want to understand what's the highest ROI that I can put in front of my audience that, you know, can make me money but also serve them. But Working John doesn't give a fuck. And so, you know, I have to make sure that sometimes I just serve myself in videos, which is okay. You need to create things that you love. But every time we don't go viral is because I haven't made it accessible enough. I haven't made it look like it's possible for them. I haven't made it believable enough. So like, show me the proof, show me the data. And I haven't really served that audience and thought about what their highest and best use was. And every time I do that, we have a viral video. And every time I forget it, we don't.
That's incredible. Now, you're in the top 1% of content creators for entrepreneurs, entrepreneur content creators. Very inspiring. It's obviously, that's such a niche within a niche. And so to hit 1 million subscribers in like business advice and boring businesses. And so I'm curious if you can rattle off the top of your mind, how much time weekly do you spend? And then, you know, for it might be more advanced, building out a media company, what kind of roles are on your staff and how do you delegate editing, researching? Do you have researchers? How's it kind of break down?
Yeah, it's a really good point that you started out with, Sean, which is the business niche is incredibly small. And the entrepreneurship niche is incredibly small. And I'm like force functioning people to care about business. Most people don't care. My mom watches my videos and she goes, that's cute, you know, I liked that part. I'm like, what'd you like? She's like, all of it. You know, so, you know, you do have to realize that the games that you play have repercussions. And the repercussion of me thinking that business and entrepreneurship is really important and everybody should have ownership in something and it will change their life is that I probably will never get as many views as a Kardashian wannabe applying 13 levels of lipstick. And so you just got to decide what you want to do. You know, if you want to go really viral easily, I say easily, none of it's easy, but if you want to go really viral, like makeup and beauty channels have like 8x the level of engagement of most other channels. They also sell almost more products than any other channels. So when you think the Kardashians aren't that smart, you're wrong. They're incredibly intelligent. They apply the fact that they know that these channels are gonna hit and then create brands around them. And so I just don't think the world needs another one of those. I think there are plenty. I'm happy to buy from them. It's like not my jam. But I have actually started, I don't actually really care very much about clothes or makeup or any of that stuff. And you might be like, but Cody, your face is painted like a clown today. What do you mean you don't care? You have so much lipstick on. And part of the reason is because I've realized this is like it's something that I've done because I understand it now, but not because it's my natural state. I've realized that to reach women, they have to see things that they want of the life that we have. And so they're not as inspired by a big bank account. And this is gross generalization, some of us are. But they're not as inspired about a big bank account. They're not as inspired about huge level of businesses. They're like, are you happy? You know, do you still feel feminine? You know, are you and your husband happy too? And then also, can I be more financially free? And so I've started to realize like, oh, okay, it kind of this personal brand really does matter. Because if it's up to me, all I want to hear from somebody is the tactics. I don't really care about anybody else. But again, the content's not for me, it's for another. And so I think that was a really important point. You guys should really think hard about what your niche is, because sometimes these smaller niches are really hard to grow. As far as a media company is concerned, so contrarian thinking overall, I want to build this. You know, you're bringing a guy that I have a massive amount of respect for, which is Dave Ramsey. And Dave Ramsey is incredible because Dave Ramsey has had something, probably the rarest thing that somebody online has had. What do you guys think it is? Longevity. Dave Ramsey has been doing this game forever. And he's done it in a way that hasn't degraded his reputation. He's done it in a way that shows categorically that he's helping people and cares about them. He's gone through periods of controversy, like we all will if we're on the internet, but man, the guy has legs. And so I have a lot of respect for him, and I want to build a similar company for the next generation. I want to build a media company, and we're plowing millions of dollars into it to help people not just save. This is where I disagree with Dave. I think saving your way to millions is really, really hard. Actually, I don't think that. The data shows it. It is much easier for you to earn more and thus get out of debt that way than it is for you to save your way out of debt. Very hard. Now, both can exist and should, and I'm very glad that a man like Dave Ramsey exists in this world. But I want to have a little bit of the counterpoint, which is how do we all get true agency and ownership? And so when it comes to how I build my team, I'm building it with the idea of, we just got an office in Austin, Texas. The office and studio, thank you. The office and studio is the first phase. We're gonna turn that into a compound overall. We are hiring aggressively. If you guys can see the roles, if you go to contrarianthinking.co, you'll see we have a whole segment on team. What you'll also see there that's important is we have something called the Contrarian Creed, which are 13 principles that we drive as a company, 13 because we don't believe in luck, we try to make it. And at the company, you'll also see what it means to be part of this company. We're very mission driven, and I think Dave's done an incredible job of that. So when it comes to my time, you know, I believe in like integration and not separation. And so this week, I think I had 5 speeches because I'm working on this book coming out. That's abnormal. But in between the 5 speeches, we're doing like a very big acquisition, which part of my team is working on, and I'm on phone calls. We've got a huge product launch that we have coming out in like June or July, which is a SaaS business I bought that we're gonna grow. And so we're kind of documenting all the things I'm doing. In the beginning, I shot 1 day a week. I had all the scripts prepared. I like went through all of them, and that worked. And then as we got bigger, I realized, why would I just try to come up with content when I can document as opposed to create? And so the cool part about it is if your content is authentic to you, you're probably already doing the thing that you're creating content about, right? So now there is some packaging and changing you need to make, but the best creators are the ones that are like, I'm building an aquarium. Also, there's a camera. And so that's how we should be with what we're doing. I'm buying businesses. Also, there's a camera. And that is also a way, I think, to not get burned out.
You're talking about contrarian thinking. You're building a media company, but you're also building a personal brand. What is your thought, personal brand versus media company, and how people should approach that with maybe their personal goal if they're a business owner and wondering if they should get on camera, and the power of personal brand, is it right for them?
In my opinion, personal brands are easier to grow. Humans like and follow humans. We do not naturally like and follow logos. And so I took an easy path. The easy path was build Cody and then build contrarian thinking. And I'm not sure that's the right path, honestly. If I was better at brand building, I would obsess on making contrarian thinking bigger, which is going to be the next stage. I mean, how do you guys know I'm not good at brand building? Somebody try to spell contrarian, like immediately off. There's like 6 vowels in there. There's like 4 R's. I mean, I should have 1 word. Instead, I have 2 words. One's really hard to spell, and there's like 13 I's between them. And so if I was to do it again, I would obsess on what my name was, not my name, but my brand's name. And I would make it short and pithy and really thoughtful. In the beginning, I completely disregarded that because in finance, nobody cares. You know, you guys go to Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and, you know, Baird, and nobody really even knows how to spell Baird. And so it didn't matter to me, but now I do think it matters. Easier to grow a personal brand, harder to grow a business brand, but the business should outlast you as a person. And unless you've created that, you have only created a very public job for yourself, not a real business. And so the next stage of what we're doing is really building out the contrarian thinking media company as a whole. And with that comes, we now have 2 newsletters. We just launched a podcast. The podcast is called The Big Deal Podcast. That can transcend past Cody. We have multiple social media channels, and now we have social media channels for the podcast. And we need to do a better job of the overall company brand building. And I think if you guys are in it, don't forget that, because it is the only thing that will help you eventually create a business, not a job, that transcends the time and hours you work in it.
So Goldman Sachs research said that the creator economy, the total addressable market, could double in the next 3 years. That right now it's about $250 billion industry, and that it's going to be $500 billion by 2027. And this creator economy, a little bit different, where yes, there's maybe some entrepreneurs that start creating content, but then in and of itself, it's its own business in some cases. Yahoo Finance said the creator economy is the fastest growing small business type. Wall Street Journal was talking about how YouTube is the most consequential technology in America, and they were talking about it's the healthiest internet economy. It's not the perfect internet economy, but how many people make jobs. The fact that YouTube gives 55% of the revenue is unlike any other platform. TikTok's trying to figure it out. They might be gone in a few weeks. Who knows? They might be banned. But even the Facebook bonus program and anything, nothing compares to the money you can make on YouTube. I'm curious just your thoughts for maybe strategic advice. This is, you're building the aquarium and a camera's on, and many here are doing that. They want leads and clients, and they're going to growth hack their businesses. But also a lot of people here want to be content creators. Your thoughts on making money and earning money from content creation. You shared something. You said target groups with cash, curiosity, and consistency. What do you mean by that?
One, I think making money from content purely is a terrible idea. Terrible idea. Let me tell you why. It's the lowest form of ROI you can have. It is more volatile than women on the Vegas Strip. I mean, this is a terrible way to live your life because the platforms change all the time, algorithms change all the time. It's expensive to produce great content, and you are taking like a percentage of a percentage of a percentage on a platform when you're providing all the lead flow. I mean, YouTube is like, you know what YouTube is? You know what you're doing when you create YouTube videos? When you create YouTube videos, you are creating ads for YouTube to use to grow their business, to sell more things to people. You're an ad agency, basically. And so I don't like that model because she's a finicky mistress and because I take such a low percentage of the take home. And so I think if you're like, I hate to generalize it by age, but if you're really young and like you want to mess around on this platform, you can make meaningful money when you're young on this platform. When you already have money, if you don't need money, but you just like creating stuff online, great, you could do it for that reason. Otherwise, it's a terrible way to make money. And instead, I would make sure that I had something to sell somebody, or I had some revenue stream that was not dependent on the content gods. And the other reason why I believe this a lot is because remember what you're doing. You've basically become an attention collector when you're creating content. And what a more dangerous game to play than have to chase attention in order to pay your mortgage. And I think that's really scary and is why news media outlets have had the situation that they've had. They had to go down the rabbit hole all the way to lizard people exist because they were chasing attention. And so what could be more inflammatory than lizard people? Although having met some people in Washington, I don't know, maybe. So that's my takeaway there. It's not a great way to make money. YouTube is the best. But I wouldn't do it for that reason. I would take that money, I would put it back into content, but I would first find a better way to drive revenue. And there's so many ways to do it. Take 100% of the pay home for the attention that you get, as opposed to a small percentage from YouTube.
And so you're saying make sure you have a business that's not just based on ads, but have a product, have a service, and
or partner with people who have businesses, products, and services. Own a portion of those, earn into a portion of those businesses. If you're not a good operator, don't try to operate a business. But maybe have something else that is a little bit more consistent than YouTube revenue. So while you're hot, go try to partner with, if you're an accounting YouTuber, go partner with an accounting firm and say, hey, I want to put you as a sponsor in all our videos, not just for a dollar amount, but I want to actually earn a portion of your business and distributing equity in that business. And for that, I won't promote anybody else. I'm just going to promote our thing, and we can grow it together. And you basically become the distribution engine or the sales engine to somebody's operations and product engine. So you don't have to build the business, but you need a business that can drive revenue for it. It could be an events business, you know? It could be something else that allows you to offset the gods of the internet.
Do you read your comments?
On bad days. Yeah, I mean, it's such a, I don't really read them on TikTok. I don't read them on YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts are mean.
Yeah.
A bunch of meanies on there. They're like, must be nice, your husband being rich. I'm like, he's in the military, you guys. Like, please do your homework. So I don't read those. Like, I'll do it for signal, not noise, because I'm not a masochist completely. I will read YouTube comments because I'm kind of curious about what they thought of the video. If they've spent a lot of time there, are we doing it right or wrong? I will read some Twitter comments. I find those not as high signal to noise. I will read comments on videos that go really viral, just to make sure. Like, sometimes we'll have a video go viral and be like, great, this video is so good. And then I look at the comments, it's like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And you're like, oh, that's why it went viral. So I'm thoughtful on it. But what I found about negative feedback is, one, you guys, I'll tell you a little secret that I've never told on the internet. So I have only ever once trolled a troll back. Have you guys ever trolled a troll? No. It's smart. I hear her, but anybody who has. Anyway, so I trolled a troll back, and I thought I was funny. I thought it was really funny. It was some guy, and he called me, I don't want to say who he called me because he's actually a nice guy, but he called me like a name, a comparison of somebody else, of a person that I don't think that highly of. And, you know, it was like, Cody Sanchez is the X of X. And I didn't like that comparison. And so I did the responsible thing, which is double click on his profile and see exactly what's going on in this guy's life. and determined that he, you know, kind of sporadically flipped houses somewhere. And so I wrote on there, on his response, something to the tune of, I hope you own more real estate in real life than I do in your head right now, rent-free. Which is like, it's a little mean. And I said, but if not, boy, do I have a course for you. Oh, don't clap. Here's the sad part.
Okay.
Here's the sad part. There are literally human beings who will make it their life mission to just chirp at you. And if you do this, you're gonna find some of them. And this guy's one of them. Like, he went kind of nutty. I kind of thought about maybe I had to get a restraining order. He posts this crazy stuff on Twitter all the time. He started asking me for feet pics in the DMs while like saying this stuff publicly. And so it just became kind of a nuisance. And so while I thought I was quite clever, it's really not worth it. You know how they say don't engage with the trolls? I truly think unless you find, and even if you think you find a perverse pleasure from it up front, it's not worth it. And I honestly think we have to be a little bit nicer to the trolls sometimes, because these guys live miserable lives with absolutely no relevancy, where the only place online they can punch up is by tweeting at somebody who's doing while they are actively not. And so ignore the noise. And even when it feels like you would have a better comeback line, let the trolls live under the bridge. Was a good line, though.
So I'm so excited for your book coming out.
Thank you.
And we actually want to hook up everybody at the conference with Codie's book for free. We'd love to cover that.
Yay! Thank you, Sean.
So I think we have a QR code, and then if you do miss it now, just to get some information so we know how to send it to you and where to send it. And then there's also some QR codes on the back tables, so in case you miss it now or you want to get that. But tell us about the book. What's all the details?
So you'll know, we're gonna talk about the book's title, the book's cover. I'd love you guys to choose it with us. We're gonna post it on Instagram and get feedback. I have like 3 versions of the cover I'm working on right now. The book will come out in December. I believe the release date is like December 3rd, so save your calendars. We're gonna do like a crazy big thing for it. You'll see it. And then we're playing this game, which is the most ridiculous game of all time, which is trying to hit the New York Times bestseller list, which is hard. There's like wizards back there that sort of like bless you or don't. And so anyway, so we're doing a big push in June for pre-orders for it. So I'll share afterwards, like, did we hit it? Did we not? Here's what we did. Did this work? In case you guys want to write a book, you can steal my homework. But the book is about all the things we talk about, which is this idea of, can we take back our communities by owning small businesses? How do we do it? How do we do it without being millionaires? Why is it maybe easier than ever to do it right now? And what are the repercussions if we don't? Which is that we become renters at best and squatters at worst in a world where the few own everything and we ask for permission. And so I hope the book is a mixture of a big idea with stories that get your brain rolling and simultaneously real tactics on if I want to go from A to owner to empire builder to holdco owner, exactly how to do that.
Amazing. So we want to make sure that we can hook you up with that, so you'll see if you have that information where they could send it, and then even being a part of the process. I love that we get to be involved in that, and so take advantage of that. You just did a post, and you gave some advice for entrepreneurs, 4 things. You said, find God, get to the gym, go on more walks, and raise your prices now. Break those down.
In no particular order. Listen, I don't profess to if my mom knew that I was telling people to find God, she'd probably think I was possessed. I was a hell of a child. But the truth of the matter is that I think that when you have a why and a reason and a faith, whatever that may be, this game of life, which all ends in death for every single one of us, gets a little bit easier. And if you guys have ever been an entrepreneur or a creator, you know that there's a moment where you will sit, head in your hands, in the dead of the night, wondering what the hell to do next with no idea the answer to that question. And I tell people a lot that the most important thing that you can ever do is be an owner. I don't tell you it's easy, because it's not. But it is the most worthwhile pursuit you can have. And so I say find God because you need a reason to do the hard. It's only through the hard you will find the incredible, but I do believe that it's much easier when you can work like it's up to you, but pray like it's up to somebody else. And the mixture of the two is powerful. So that's one. The second one is, I saw this meme that I can't get out of my head. And the meme was essentially, it was like this frazzled guy with like crazy hair and red bloodshot eyes. And he's like praying and like looking up at God. And he's like, God, is this the biggest struggle that you've ever put in front of me? And then it was like God looking down at him. And he's like, no, bro, like go outside, get some vitamin D and put down your phone. And I think that that is often the case for most of us. It's like we need strong bodies in order to have strong minds. And for some reason, there's an attack on both of those. And then the third that I think about, continuously is the third about walking outside?
Yeah, go walk outside.
Yeah, so I answer both of those. And then the last one, raise your prices now. We analyze thousands of small businesses every year. At Main Street Holding Company, if you're ever thinking about selling any type of business, you can go to Main Street Holding Company, you can send the business to us, and we will analyze if we might want to buy it, and if not, we could also give you a place where you could sell the business with other people. And what I am fascinated by continuously is that almost every business that comes to us is underpriced. I don't know if I've ever seen a business where I thought, man, the prices on this didn't make sense for the business to run. And so there's a guy by the name of Patrick Campbell, who's a friend of mine. He's on Twitter, and he works a lot on this idea of pricing. And so whenever I have a new business that's struggling with the pricing model, I typically go to him and say, how should we mess with this a little bit? And he has a couple of frameworks that I like, which is one, raise your prices when now, raise your prices when often, raise your prices when you only have one level, you need at least 5. And 5 doesn't mean that you need front-leaning pricing. You could have different layers that nobody can see. But what's astounding to me is that most people, their prices are a reflection of what they think their value is. So take a deep look on what you think you're worth. Can you believe you are worth more? And can you deliver on that worth? And if you can, raise your prices.
Codie Sanchez, final question. If we want to make these next 12 months our best 12 months, we definitely want to create content, but we're all trying to build a business and leveraging online, and we also want to build strong families and make an impact. What are some parting words for really building some massive momentum in this next 12 months?
You've done the first thing I always say, which is get in rooms where other people's Tuesday is your dream day. You're here. There's a truth that is shown both by the data and both by our feelings, which is that most things in life are contagious. Energy, money, belief, opportunity. And it's pretty wild. A bunch of data supports that if you are overweight and you hang out with people who are extremely fit, more often than you hang out with anybody else, your likelihood of becoming fit actually increases. If you hang out with the opposite, the same is true. The same is true with money. One of my favorite mentors, Bill Perkins, who wrote Die with Zero, he did me maybe the biggest favor I've had somebody do me in the last 3 years, which is we were walking along his compound on Lake Austin, and I was explaining some of my ideas I thought were really big, like we're gonna change the world with these ideas. And as we're walking along, have you guys ever had you come home, you're really excited to tell your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend something, you're so excited. You explain it to them and they just shit all over the idea? Does that ever happen? Just me? So anyway, I'm walking with Bill, I'm all excited, and Bill kind of stops and looks at me and he goes, do you think that you have been around small business for so long that small has infected your thinking? And I was like, and young Cody, young idiot 21-year-old wannabe life coach Cody, would have probably pushed back on him. I would have been like, what do you know? Yeah, I'm gonna do this, don't tell me what to do. But more evolved Cody thought, if a guy who's worth $1 billion, and I am not yet worth that, with many aspects of the life that I want says that, maybe I need to listen. And so I said, I'm not sure, Bill, but let me think about it. And as I thought about it, I realized he was completely right. My idea was too small, it was too safe. And so if you're going to change anything in the next 12 months, I believe, which is why it's one of the first products we created at Contrarian Thinking, it is all about the people you surround yourself with. The likelihood, we've taught 3,000 people live how to buy businesses in person versus 5,000 people go through courses. Who do you think buys businesses more? The community. Why? Is the information different? No, the information is exactly the same. Why do you think these people also buy 2 to 3x larger businesses than these people? Because they have other people around them that are telling them to do it. It is why I categorically disagree with people who say that we shouldn't build communities when we are creators. If you want to achieve something, if you want to buy a business, you're an idiot if you don't get into a community where you can do that today. If you want to grow content, you're an idiot if you don't get into a community of content creators. It is the fastest way to steal somebody else's energy, information, and confidence. And so if you were going to do nothing else, I would say get in the room where other people are already playing the game that you want to learn to play.
If you enjoyed this content and want to take your YouTube channel to the next level, just click or tap the link on the screen or go to tube1kchallenge.com to join our next live YouTube challenge. You'll learn our best tips and strategies that are working here at Think Media, and I think you'll love it.